We're doing a little practice for the quiz today. What do you need to be a parametric equation? You need an x equation and a y equation, right? Well, I already got a y equation. I need an x equation, and I need t in my equations, right? So if you just say x equals t, that's the simplest way you can do this. Now you got an x equation that's got a t in it, and if x really is t, then obviously you got to replace this t right here with, or this x right here with a t, and same with that one. There. Now, the only thing is you're really supposed to have a limit for your t. But there wasn't any limit on the other one. So then the limit is just from negative infinity to positive infinity. Yes, you should have a limiter, also called a parameter in parametrics, for all your equations. Yes?
Would it be less than equal to infinity?
Oh, for infinities, you're right. We shouldn't have an or equals. Good catch. All right, so this next kind, you got a point that goes to another point. These are pretty easy, and you either know it or you don't. Right now, I'm guessing that Jaden knows it. How many of you would be willing to bet you've got this? Okay, cool. If you're not raising your hand, maybe you missed yesterday and didn't watch, or maybe you were here yesterday and just didn't catch that the first point can just go right here. 2 and 8, that can go right there. Then you're going to add, well, obviously a t, and it's not that easy. You got to look at how much change you need. I would need 2 to go to 4. That's an increase of plus 2. And you need the 8 to go down to 0. That's a decrease, minus 8. Plus minus, of course, isn't ideal, so therefore let's just make it minus. And there's your equation. But wait, what do you always need? A limit. A parameter. And that's between, if we do it the way I just showed you, you're just always going to say between 0 and 1. Because the 0, when you put it in, would knock out this term and that term, and it would leave you with 2 and 8. Okay. Any questions on how to write a directed line segment? That's what that was called. Because it went from this point to this point, which makes it a line segment. The fact that it goes from the one to the other gives you the direction. All right. And then this has 2 parts. One, you graph it. So to graph it, you'll need to find out this point, and this point. And then I need you to convert this thing, and I'm only going to give you one hint. That this thing, you're going to square both sides and then do something else to convert it over from, this is clearly a parametric. Actually, it's not that clear it's a parametric. I'm going to change these to t's. And then I'm going to say a little more obvious about these guys. That t is between pi and 3 pi over 2. That makes it look more like it's a parametric. Okay, so that is a parametric, and this squared is just to remind you, you are going to square things in order to convert this over. All right, this is your last practice problem before we take the quiz today, and then that's all we're going to do. At the end of the hour, we'll grade the quiz, and you'll walk out of here knowing if you're on top of this stuff or not. You have a homework assignment tonight of a Schoology quiz. So once you're done doing the quiz we do in class, you do a Schoology quiz for your homework. And that's all I got. Now, actually, I'm gonna resume the video again in a second after I pause here. -1.
Y is 0.
And 0. Just to clarify, if you're like, I don't get that, it's cosine of pi. And pi is this spot right here. And the way we do those is we say that on the unit circle would be at -1 comma 0, and then cosine of that is the x, which it makes it -1, and the sine of that is the y, which is why it's 0. Okay, cool. Now I'm not going to explain the rest of them. Ruby, could you just tell me the final answers for these other 4 spots?
Is it -3 over 2?
And a lot of people forgot the negative in the other hours, so I bet a lot of people forgot it here. That was because it's drawn down here, and it's the 1, 2, root 3 triangle, but that's negative, and so is that. Okay, and then the other one?
-1.
Yes. And then last but not least, Maddie G, what's the 3 pi over 2 ones?
-1.
-1 and 0? Exact same point as it was before? That feels off. Let me show you why. Here's where 3 pi over 2 is. It's down here. And the cosine is the one we want first, and so that one is 0, good, and this one's -1. Okay, cool. Now, if you were to graph that, here's where it starts. Here's a point that's in between, and I know you might be like, I don't know where that is. It's a negative decimal, it's less than 1. Because square root of 4 over 2 would have been -1. Okay, so we could know that this is just 2 decimals that are both negative, and then this one's 0, -1, which is down here. And look, it's part of a circle. And then you put a little arrow thingy like that, because these are directional. Okay. Now, how do you convert it over? You square this, you square that, you square this, you square that, and then you add these together, and you get x squared plus y squared. And what is cosine squared plus sine squared? 1. X squared plus y squared equals 1.
Why do you do that?
Why do we do that? I mean, like, well, I told you guys to convert it, and I just converted that from a parametric into a not parametric. This one is not a parametric anymore. All right. Now, wait though. Why? This one has a limit on it. It doesn't want a whole circle, does it? It only wanted part of the circle. So, if you just said x squared plus y squared equals 1, you really didn't ever limit yourself, and that means this would actually graph to be a whole circle. It goes all the way around. So then how do you make it have a limit? Well, look at this graph. Could you say that x has to be like less than this? Or could you say that the y has to be less than that? Or what could you do? Yes? You'd have to limit both of them. So you'd have to say, to get this to not be a circle that goes around forever, but only has this part of the circle, you'd have to say that y has to stay less than 0, and that x has to be less than 0. So if we limit both parts, y is less than 0 and x is less than or equal to 0 actually, then we'd have chopped off that because y has to be less than 0, and we'd have chopped off this because x has to be less than 0, and that would leave us with the part we want. That was a tricky one at the end, I'll give you that. All right, so that's good practice though, and your tests will have that but a lot more. That's why tomorrow we review everything. And then today's quiz isn't on everything. Today's quiz is basically on what you've learned, mostly what you learned yesterday and a little bit of the day before, but all right. So you'll see. And if you don't do well on it, hey, it's just homework. This counts as a homework assignment. All right, after this, remember that there is a Schoology quiz for your homework.